Well, hello. If you've joined in, I'm sorry we're a little bit late. We've had quite a week, and it was fantastic last week. We were on such a high, and then we got some lovely feedback. One of the feedbacks that we got was from Tongola cheese people, and they gave us a hint about how to set up our camera. Yeah, so you mute your sound. Put it in the middle there. Okay. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, where am I? Oh, there I am. Okay. Yeah, so they suggested how we could do this so that our labels of the wine weren't in reverse. So what that means is that we can't see each other. We can't see what we're doing while we're doing it. And you'll also notice that this isn't Helen.
No, I'm not Helen.
No,
I've got big shoes to fill.
Anyway, we'll get the show on the road and all will be revealed. How about that?
Wonderful.
Okay. Welcome. You've joined the Farm Shed East Coast Wine Centre's virtual wine tasting. As we said last week, we're going to start from the southern end of the wine region and head up to the north. And Helen's had to rush off to Melbourne to do some family business this week. So my friend Kyle here. Hello. So hopefully.
Yes. So
yeah.
what
we're
we're
on
doing?
The page now.
What we're doing is at the Farm Shed we're having a virtual tasting for the whole of the East Coast wine region. So for those of you who don't know, the East Coast wine region starts down near Port Arthur, and last week we showcased Brim Creek.
We did.
And then it goes all the way up to the Bay of Fires. So there's 22 wineries that are vineyards that are along the east coast of Tasmania. And we've now done, this is our second, doing Cape Bernier, which is just next door to Brim Creek. And we will be, each week, for the next 20 weeks, we'll be showcasing other wineries, vineyards along the east coast, all the way up to the Bay of Fires. We're located actually on the middle of the coast. We're in Bishno. We're right near, for those of you who aren't aware, we're right near the famous Wineglass Bay. So we've got lots of icons along here. So if you haven't been down here, make sure you come and have a visit. Our wines are spectacular.
Yes. If we've met you before, hi again. And if we haven't met you, we really, really hope to see you when we open up and get happening again. But I did pose a question a few days ago. And the question was, what do soaring eagles and mountain goats have to do with virtual wine tastings? Well, the story goes a little bit like this. Back in 2014, a young couple were travelling around Tasmania. They were on a holiday, but they had in the back of their mind that they were kind of looking for a semi-rural property because they wanted to leave the city and pursue their dream and come back to Tasmania from where one of them had been born. So on their travels, they met another young couple and they hit it off. So the second young couple invited the first young couple to come visit them. In due course, they headed down to Brim Creek and they headed down the road to Leap Farm, and which also produces Tongola cheese. On their way there, they saw a for sale sign next door for Cape Bernier Vineyard. And as they say, the rest is history. They've been great friends ever since. They are both very sustainable, socially conscious operators with their farms, with their grapes, with their goats. The goats are only milked once a day, and they're left with their kids the rest of the day. So it's a win-win all around. Award-winning cheeses coming from Tongola, and we're told that they go really well with the Cape Bernier wines. So we're trying 2 Cape Bernier wines tonight, and we thank you so much, Tongola Cheese, for sending us some cheese to try with them.
Yes, it's right in front of us and it's melting at the moment. It's looking very, very nice.
It's oozing. I have to say, it's oozing beautifully.
Now, I'm talking about the Pinot Gris grape first of all, because we're trying the haphazard Pinot Gris, the early release, and hopefully you can all see it there.
Yes, we've got a time delay on our monitor, so we're a few seconds behind you, which is quite disconcerting.
So anyway, the Pinot Gris grape is originally from the Burgundy area of France. It's related, it's like a derivative or a relation of the Pinot Noir grape. It's predominantly grown in the Alsace region of France, around Strasbourg, in the northeastern part of France. But it's also the same grape, if any of you have had Pinot Grigio or even Grauburgunder from Germany, it's the same grape variety. The Pinot Gris that's grown in the Alsace region is very much more full-bodied flavour, whereas in Italy they pick it a little bit earlier. It's more acidic. It has lots of tropical flavours, pear and melon, and it's also grown predominantly in cool climate areas, and that's why we grow it so well here in Tassie.
Absolutely. And it seems that the southern end of the wine region, where both Cape Bernier, who we're showcasing this week, and Brim Creek last week are located, are particularly well suited. They've got a really nice, smooth, ripening season down there, so it's particularly good for Pinot Gris and sparkling wines. So while you pour us a little drop to try, Kyle, I'll just let you know Cape Bernier is one of the medium-sized vineyards in the region. It's about 4.5 hectares. Now, they're an interesting pair, Jen and Andrew. He's from Sydney. He's an IT specialist. She's a Texan who's an Antarctic ecological conservation scientist. They both work from home a few days a week. They're also both very passionate about pigs. So along with the vineyard on the property, they breed Black Berkshire Saddleback Cross pigs. They also are great people for showcasing that paddock to plate value that we all treasure these days. They make some beautiful pork terrines, but they also, on special occasions, will do a pork and Pinot event for open vineyard weekends and things like that, where they do a traditional Texan barbecued pig on the spit and serve it with the Pinot Noir. Now, like some of the vineyards, they have 2 labels. This Haphazard is their early release label, and it's named after a boat that they built in their spare time for the Wooden Boat Festival. So let's have a little try.
Yes, let's try it.
Hope you can join us. See, I'm not a big Pinot Gris drinker, and this happens a lot at the farm shed. We often have people for tastings and they say, oh, just leave out the Pinot Gris, just leave out the Riesling, I just don't like it. And then they'll have a taste and they'll go, oh, but I like that one. So I guess it's really about matching your palate to your pocket, and what's important is finding out what you like. But we have to have an open mind because wines vary from region to region and state to state and country to country. So if you don't like a Chardonnay in Launceston, you may well like a Chardonnay in Bichonneau. So
this apparently goes really well with this cheese. We should be trying
I
this
think
cheese.
we better have some. And in fact, I'm gonna try to show you just how beautifully this cheese is oozing. Look at this.
That's very oozing cheese, and it smells fabulous.
Oh, it certainly does. This one's called Bloom from the Tongala range. So I'm just going to have a little bit of that. And there are many, many people, obviously, you will realise, who know a lot more about wine than we do. And I think Kyle's got a few words of wisdom from Cape Bernier themselves about
I certainly do. So the Haphazard Pinot Gris, early release, pale straw in colour, with a lovely floral bouquet. Refreshing pear and mandarin. Now, I definitely get pear there. I can definitely get pear.
Yeah, I see. There are super tasters, you know, that have twice as many taste buds on their tongues, and they can pick those fruits. I often can't, but I think I'm getting mandarin.
Maybe I'm a super taster.
I think you probably are. I'm a super drinker.
With a hint of, so it also says here, with a hint of honeysuckle and green apple from a small amount of blended Chardonnay. So there you go. There's a little bit.
I can. Now that you mention it, I've got the green apple.
Apple.
Yeah.
delicate fruit flavours are balanced by a crisp acid finish, which means it pairs perfectly with succulent meats and seafood.
It's been a bit of a lead up.
That's live entertainment for you.
It is live. Yes, I'm not sure who that was calling, but this wine is delicious. You can probably hear the dogs barking outside as well. They'll be in after. So Cape Bernier, minimal sprays, Kyle, sustainable vineyard, great people. I don't know how they fit in their lives, making wooden boats, having 2 children, breeding pigs, growing grapes.
Antarctic science.
Now they don't make the wine.
Oh, right.
There's only 6 of the producers on the East Coast wine region who are also wineries. So the winemaker for this wine is Alan Rousseau, quite a famous man. Frogmore Creek, one of the most respected winemakers in the state. But Jen and Andrew dictate the style. So they're in there telling him what they want. And I tell you what, it works for me.
Yes, I'd certainly buy it.
And
Right.
thank you so much, Tongola, for that delicious cheese. And congratulations on winning the Delicious Food Awards, state winner. And they tell me, I was having a bit of a chat with Ian today, it was fantastic hearing all about the does and the bucks and the kids and they have about 75 milkers there that they milk every day, just once a day, not twice a day. And on average, goats are considered good milkers if they produce 2 litres over 2 milkings a day. These goats are so happy, Kyle, they produce 2 litres in 1 milking because they get to play with their kids the rest of the day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, they won these awards for Delicious magazines. And I think that they were the only people who were entered in 2 categories, one for meat and one for cheese, because they also produce some pretty fantastic goat meat products down there. All right.
Wonderful. Well, there you go. That was the Pinot Gris. That was absolutely fabulous.
What have we got next?
We have the Pinot Noir. So first of all, I'll just talk a little bit about the grape there, and it's really interesting doing this because it's Subi's asked me to come along and help, and it certainly taught me a lot more about the grape. So this is it here, and the colour is amazing. It's absolutely fabulous.
And I'll just show you the brand because this is their reserve range. So the Haphazard, as we said, is the early release range, and then a lot of the vineyards that have the 2 brands have the older wines in their reserve range. Often they're from the older vines on the vineyard. Now this one's pretty up there. Last week we talked about James Halliday and the Brim Creek wines being included in the Halliday Wine Guide. Well, there are some Cape Bernier ones in there. In fact, Kyle, the East Coast really kicks above its weight in terms of listings there, but also in the Tasmanian Wine Show too. So this one got 95 points from James Halliday.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
It's kind of a medium-bodied Pinot. We have some really light ones, which we'll introduce you to later. We also have some others that are really interesting. Next week, we have 2 really interesting Pinots. Neither of them are typical East Coast Pinots, but they're both absolutely stand out and delicious. Meanwhile,
yes, so...
what does James Halliday say about this?
I was going to talk a little bit about the grape first. If that's
Oh,
right.
yes, please do.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
So
I'll just keep sipping.
So Pinot Noir is also from the Burgundy region of France. The name comes from Pinot is pine, Noir of course is black. I didn't mention also that Pinot Gris, the word gris, grigio and grau all refers to grey in their local languages because the fruit is a grey blue colour. Anyway, with Pinot Noir, the pine name comes from the tightness of the fruit. So it's so tight that it almost looks like a pine cone. And then of course it's that really dark, like black sort of colour almost, which is where the name comes from. It's predominantly grown also in cool climate countries. And the other thing about it too is that it's a very difficult wine to make. It's quite fiddly. Every vintage is unique because of the weather conditions and the area. That's also why Pinot Noir can often be a little bit more expensive than other wines because a lot of work goes.
Years in the wine centre is that almost half the plantings in Tasmania are Pinot Noir grapes, which are so ideally suited, as Kyle said, to the cool climate region, and almost the other half is Chardonnay, and then all those other varieties which we're getting more and more and more of, and we're going to introduce you to a couple of cool climate Shirazes in these tastings, and we had a Schomburger last week. We've got some Sauv Blancs on the tasting list. Speaking of which, because of feedback we got last week, the whole tasting list for the 20-week virtual tasting program is now on our website. So pop in there, have a look, choose what you'd like to join in. If you want to get us to send some to you, post is a bit slow at the moment, but we'll send it anywhere in Australia for free. So back at the Pinot Noir. Yeah, so almost half are those two ideally cool climate grapes. But there are some other factors that contribute to the wines in Tasmania being a bit more expensive. One of them, and I said to Fred Peacock, who we talked about last week, Fred, people say Tasmanian wines are expensive, and I tell them that they're really small vineyards. Like the smallest one that we'll do next week produces 69 dozen bottles in a good year. This one's a bit bigger. They've got quite a lovely range of wines over both their labels. But I said, what else should I be saying to them? And Fred explained that in Tasmania, because it's a cool climate region, we get about half the tonnage per hectare that they get on the mainland. So our yield is half of what is average on the mainland. Then you throw in the fact that we're a cool climate, so our growing season is twice as long and a very, very slow ripening, which suits the Pinot Noir in particular. So you've got to tend the vines and keep back the bugs and the diseases and things for twice as long. Then you throw in the terrain. As you know, we're hilly and windy, and there aren't many flat bits. Like I remember driving up in the Riverland of South Australia, and we were going past Banrock Station, many years ago. I love that wine. It's still, very drinkable. But honestly, the size of the vineyard, Kyle, we drove and we drove and we drove and we thought, this vineyard's the size of Tasmania. It is huge and it is flat. So everything's done with machine. But in Tasmania, very, very little's done with machine. It's all hand done, from the picking, the plucking, to the training the vines along the so it's very, very labour intensive, all of which contributes to the cost, but well worth it, we think.
That's right.
Cape Bernier. Oh, lots of love and passion goes into Tassie wines, absolutely. And Cape Bernier, hi there, also mentioned that the kids from Tongola play with the kids, two-legged type, from Cape Bernier, so that's lovely to know. Anyway.
That is delicious, absolutely delicious. It's funny, when I first moved down to Tassie from Melbourne about, now 13 years ago, I was mainly a Cabernet or a Shiraz drinker, but since moving down here, I've been introduced to Pinot Noir, and it's just a wonderful wine. And
there's such a range within the Pinot for a little while, and like I said last week, these big glasses, if you can open it up and let it sit for a little while before you drink it, even my unsophisticated palate can tell that it's really coming into its own.
And James Halliday, who Sylvie just mentioned before, has given this wine 95 points. Is that what you said? 95 points. Says that it's an elegant, balanced wine that has been open vat fermented and matured for 9 months in French oak. Black cherry and licorice aromas are complemented by fine tannins and savoury spice flavours, characteristic of the vineyard.
Now, I'm told that Billy over here goes really well with this. In fact, I'm told by Tongola that all of the Tongola cheeses go really well with all of the Cape Bernier wines. And I do you know, the people at Cape Bernier are the only ones that we have yet to meet, but I'm going to be heading down there as soon as possible to visit both Tongola and Cape Bernier. Yeah. I feel like I've made new friends, even though I've never met them. But that's what it's like in Tasmania, isn't it? The food, the wine, the produce. the passion.
It is. It is
The
one of the things I on Pinot Noir was that a famous French wine master said that Pinot is like having sex in a glass, and he also said that God created Cabernet Sauvignon, but the devil created Pinot Noir, and it is a wonderful wine.
Absolutely, and particularly this one. And I think that's a great note to go out on, because we're going to have a bit more of that Pinot Gris with some fresh oysters that we've had delivered today from Freycinet Marine Farm. So if you can't get up the East Coast just yet, they're delivering down to Hobart and all over the place. But if you're outside of the state and you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to get here, please, by all means, please come and visit all of these places, and come and visit us in Bicheno at the East Coast Wine Centre. Meanwhile, I'm going to go off and have that with some oysters, and I'm going to cook up some of Freycinet Marine Farm's mussels with some cherry tomatoes that are the last of the crop off of our vines here, and throw in a bit of prosciutto, and I reckon that'll go pretty nicely with this little Pinot Noir. And I'm not the cook. So thank you so much, Kyle. Thanks for joining us. We're going to keep working on the technology. Thanks for the hint on the phone being back to front. It's really disconcerting not being able to see ourselves.
And hi, Helen.
Yes, and hi, Helen. Oh, Robbie Burrows is enjoying this wine. Thanks, Robbie. Oh, and Tongola, tell us to grate some Big B over the top of that pasta. I will. Thank you. That's the Billy. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure, Rhonda, pop on down. I'm not much of a cook. I'm sort of 20 years behind Helen now, but I'm happy for you to pop on down. I've got enough mussels for three of us, and I've certainly got enough oysters. So, bon appetit, salute.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us. See you next week.